subscribe to that channel. Check out this video from 2 years ago when I made a few comments on the show Proboxtv with George Jakovic on the panel, who I really liked. He was the best, one of the best panelists on that show, and I gave him his credit. And we had Paulie Malignaggi as well, talking about the 140-pound weight class division, who were the best, and they started reading everybody's comments, and I didn't agree with what the panelists were saying, specifically with Chris Algieri. Oh, wow, people calling, messing up my flow. Stop calling me, you crank callers. Anyway, yes, I'm back. So I didn't agree with Sean Porter, and I didn't agree with Chris Algieri. But I think that out of all the panelists, the most honest and unbiased was Jakovic, George Jakovic, who I really respect highly. And I'm actually friends with him on Facebook, and he did say he was going to invite me on his show or possibly go on my show, but nothing has transpired yet. But I would definitely love to have him on my show, George Jakovic. But this was a show they did 2 years about the 140-pound weight class division, where does Subriel Matias rank in the 140-pound division. And the previous show, this guy, Chris Algieri, which I really respected his opinion until he started being really biased with Subriel Matias, and he wasn't giving him the credit that he deserved. And at that time, Subriel Matias was the IBF champion. But this comment, I made a few comments on the Proboxtv channel, like in like 3 different shows, and they went crazy with my comments. And I made comments about, you know, Chris Algieri. Every time that I make a comment about him, that I steam up his glasses because I make him nervous, because I'm always calling him out for what he says about Subriel Matias, being biased against Subriel Matias. So I can't find that video, but if you can find that video where they talk about the 140-pound weight class division and they undermine Subriel Matias, not George Jakovic, but Chris Algieri specifically, he undermines Subriel Matias. So if you can find that video where I talk about, you know, Chris Algieri, his glasses get steamed up every time that I make a comment about him, you know, he gets nervous because I call him out. So I'm going to put the video that I found that actually they read my comments, and they read a lot of different comments, but my comments stood out. Tony Oso's comments stood out on the show, Proboxtv. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing, so I'm going to share the video of 2 years ago, Proboxtv, when they were actually trying to get people to subscribe to the channel. And I was really enjoying the channel because they were reading the fans, the comments from the fans, and they were engaging with the fans. And my comments stood out of all of them. And this is what happened when they were talking about Subriel Matias. I called Chris Algieri. But George Jakovic was a class act. He still is. Class act. So I'm gonna share the video. Check it out right here.
Couple of quotes from the fans. Freddie Cassiano, 6354, said, nobody can claim to be the man at 140 without seeing Subriel Matias first. And Tony also said, Chris isn't a real boxing journalist. I respected him until he made this absurd statement about Subriel. He needs to do his homework or stop pretending to be a boxing analyst. So the fans have the fans have spoken out, and
I feel like, George, I feel like you put that on the back end of all that.
I really didn't. I didn't have to. I was going to.
Sound like genuine fans.
I was going to, but the fans did it themselves. And I think, Chris, what Tony's referring to is, you said something about Subriel had power, but he wasn't as strong as Regis Prograis. So, Chris, let's start with you. Subriel Matias is a champ.
Yes, so right there, I was basically calling out Chris Algieri because he was overhyping Regis Prograis, making him seem like he was the strongest fighter out of the division, and he was not even in his prime at the time. And Subriel Matias was way better, more powerful, and stronger, but he was overhyping Regis Prograis when Regis Prograis was not in his prime anymore, and he was a former version of himself. But you know, I guess he had to like see it with his own eyes, and in a different fight, when he basically witnessed a fight that he didn't really win in his hometown, but they gave it to him. And I guess watching him lose to Devin Haney, and then after that, losing in the next fight, I just feel that that's he needed too much convincing to actually admit that Regis Prograis was a former version of himself, and he didn't want to give credit to Subriel Matias, who was an IBF champion and proven more than Regis Prograis as far as like in that weight class 140 as of recent in that time. So yes, so this is what he says to my comments. This is what he says.
He's knocking everyone out. Why didn't he make the list? The fans want to know.
Defense. One word. Defense. Listen, defense is what wins championships. The highest level guys, the guys who are at the top of the pound for pound list, always have good defense.
All right, that was his reasoning. That was his reasoning. Defense. He said this Subriel Matias doesn't have defense for him to put him at the top of the 140-pound weight class. But right now, Subriel Matias is a WBC champion, and he has proven that he can beat a boxer, despite Chris Algieri undermining Subriel Matias, saying that he has no defense. He has some kind of defense. It's deceptive defense. It's not the greatest like Floyd Mayweather or Sweet Pea Whitaker, but he does have defense, because if he didn't have defense, he wouldn't be able to beat Alberto Puello. How you doing? Beautifully made 7976. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. I'm talking about the comments that made me famous on Proboxtv. Those are the comments that made me famous on Proboxtv. I hope you're enjoying the channel, and I have a interview that I have coming up with Abisael Cotto. I'm going to interview Abisael Cotto this Thursday at 6 p.m. He's going to fight on November 22nd on the undercard of Gallo the Producer versus Juanma Lopez, which is an influencer versus Juanma Lopez, who was a two-time champion in the featherweight division. So he's fighting on the undercard, Abisael Cotto, and I'm going to interview him this Thursday. He's a class act, and he's a 130-pounder, 9-0 with 8 KOs. He's going to fight, who's he going to fight? Check out the interview that I have with him. I have like 2 different interviews with Abisael Cotto. So yeah, he's gonna fight a fighter that's never been only been stopped by Shakur Stevenson and have been stopped by Raymond Ford, but nobody else has been able to stop him. And this guy is a tough veteran that Abisael Cotto is gonna fight. Thank you for subscribing, beautifully made 7976. I appreciate you tuning into the channel, but I'm talking about what the comments that made me popular and famous on Proboxtv. Everybody on the panel went on a frenzy when I made my comments about Chris Algieri undermining Subriel Matias, and there's other videos that my comments were highlighted, but I can't find it. But you have to look at it, try to see if you can find it on Proboxtv. My comments from Tony also were highlighted, and George Jakovic really found me hilarious, and Paul Malignaggi found me funny, and they liked the way that I was so honest and very eloquent in my commentary. So I know that I had Chris Algieri nervous and shaking, and his glasses were steaming, and he's a good person, and he knows his boxing, but I felt like he was undermining Subriel Matias, so I had to call him out. Yeah, so I'm gonna show you a different part of the video where they actually read one of my comments. Let me go to it right now. Subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. Here we go. I'm gonna go back into it. These are the comments that made Tony also famous on Proboxtv.
I did have one more comment that I clipped out. Guess why? Because my name's in it. He said, respect to George Jakovic, who closed out the video by stating, Timothy Bradley says, Subriel Matias is the best. Respect to George Jakovic.
Hold up.
Naturally.
We're gonna take a quick break, but Tony also did have one more comment that I clipped out. Guess why? Because my name's in it. He said, respect to George Jakovic, who closed out the video by stating, Timothy Bradley says, Subriel Matias is the best 140-pound champion. Kudos to him. Someone actually spelled my name right and gave me kudos, so
Sean, like you said, I think George is picking these for a reason.
Yeah.
Something tells me Tony now is going to go is going to be a Tips Hall of Fame speech to congratulate him.
Well, you know what? Something tells me that Proboxtv.
Yes. Yeah, the thing that I found funny was Paul Malinagi's comment. Like, the way he said that I was gonna go to his speech and congratulate Timothy Bradley for speaking highly of Subriel Matias. I found Paul Malinagi very charismatic and funny, and Chris Algieri made me laugh because every time I made a comment about him, you could tell that his glasses were steaming up and he was getting frustrated. But it was all fun and jokes, but it was actually real. Like, I was calling him out because I thought that he was being biased against Subriel Matias, and he kind of reminded me of Max Kellerman with the way he was responding. But yeah, and then the thing that got me was Sean Porter in the first part of the video where I shared the first comments that they shared about me on Proboxtv, George Jakovic, how he was reading my comments, and Sean Porter didn't believe that was my comment. He thought that George Jakovic added something to the end to criticize Chris Algieri, but that was actually all my commentary. They couldn't believe that I was being articulate and eloquent in expressing my disgust with the way Chris Algieri was like undermining Subriel Matias. Like I said, he wasn't really being a real boxing analyst. He wasn't being a real journalist. He's pretending to be one. But I thought it was hilarious. Subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Subscribe to that channel. Let me see if I can find something else.
He is doing some.
I know he responded to it. He responded to what I said. He responded a lot. Chris Algieri responded a lot, but I don't want to get like copyrights or anything if I share too much. So this is all like I'm just actually elaborating and giving you my take on what was said about my comments. Subscribe to that channel. Tony also knows boxing. I'm gonna interview Abisael Cotto. I'm gonna interview him this Thursday, so check that out. He's the future champion of 130-pound weight class, and I would love to see him fight Stephen Fulton versus Oshiki Foster, the winner of that fight. But I don't think that they're gonna fight Abisael Cotto just yet, because Abisael Cotto has to make a name for himself, and I believe he's gonna do it. And you have to support him. He's gonna fight November 22nd on the undercard of Juanma Lopez versus Gallo, the producer. They're actually using the fight with the influencer from Puerto Rico, Gallo, the producer, versus Juanma Lopez, who's a two-time champion in the super featherweight division, to give visibility to the undercard Puerto Rican boxing prospects in Puerto Rico, and it's actually working, and is giving the boxing prospects from Puerto Rico visibility. And we also have Stephanie Pinheiro on the undercard, who is 9-0 with 3 KOs, who's going to defend her interim WBA championship. I interviewed her last Thursday, and it was a great interview. You can check that out too whenever you get a chance. My interview with Stephanie Pinheiro. She's a female Puerto Rican boxing champion, interim champion of the WBA. And we have Manuel Febos, who's going to be on the undercard as well of the Juanma Lopez versus Gallo, the producer fight on November 22nd. All these fights are going to be November 22nd, the same day that David Benavidez fights Yarde, and Brian Norman Jr. faces Devin Haney. That's going to be interesting. Subscribe to the channel. Tony also knows boxing. You're tuning into my channel. I just wanted to share briefly what made Tony also famous with the commentaries that were read by Proboxtv when I commented about the 140-pound weight class division, how they were undermining, not they, but how Chris Algieri was undermining Subriel Matias. So they read my comments on that show, and they read my comments on 3 of their shows. And the boxing world of Pro Boxing TV, and as far as the panelists and the commentators, they all went in a frenzy about my comments, and especially the panelists on Proboxtv, Algieri, Paul Malinagi, George Jakovic, Sean Porter. They all went in a frenzy with my commentary. They just found it hilarious, and it made everybody really emphasize on my comments, and it was really interesting the way everything went down. I really like the way I got the notoriety on the channel. I got recognition, but like right now my channel's growing. and I'm doing a lot of great things
Well,
for
we begin
boxing
with the main
and for
event
Puerto
from
Rican
Saturday,
boxing as
Canelo
well.
I was going to.
Championships, the highest level guys, the guys. He got outboxed in our era. Fanatic. These guys opinion show. Every list is an opinion for discussion. So yeah, I mean, listen, fan comes from what word? Fanatic. These guys are fanatic. Actually, before I even go, was Homeboy Puerto Rican?
Yes, I'm Puerto Rican. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
A little bit of home cooking. A little bit of home cooking.
Tony, also, if you're out there, drop some comments. Tell us some more about yourself.
I love when people get butthurt when you don't have their guy.
Yes. So, you see what he said about me, right? Chris Algieri. But I was just calling it how it was. I just thought that he was giving Regis Progress too much credit, and he wasn't giving Subriel Matias any credit. And I feel like Subriel Matias, if you know boxing, he's better than what Chris Algieri was actually assessing. And I believe that he was over glorifying Regis Progress. And at that time, Regis Progress, he hasn't proven anything at 140. He was really new at 140. He wasn't like he was at a lower weight class when he fought Josh Kelly when he beat Josh Kelly. And you know, he beat Josh Kelly. I thought he won, but he didn't really win. Like they didn't give him the victory. They didn't give Regis Progress the victory over Josh Kelly. But I thought he beat Josh Kelly. I thought he did. You know, I give him credit. But that was Josh Kelly was in a different weight class. I don't think it was at 140. And being at 140, he was giving him too much credit, and he wasn't the same Regis Progress that beat Josh Kelly too. Like he wasn't in his prime anymore. But I think that he was just over glazing him like that, you know. Hola, let me read the comments. De la B, number 2. Hola, amigos, saludos desde Madrid. Mándame un saludo a mi primo de Zaragoza. Se llama Ian Melano. Saludo a Ian Melano. Y el primo desde Madrid, el primo de la B. Saludos de la vid. Gracias por estar en sintonía en mi canal, por suscribirte a mi canal y por estar en sintonía en mi canal. Y saludo al primo tuyo, Zaragoza, se llama Ian Melano. Saludos. Ian Melano, saludos. Bendiciones y gracias por estar en sintonía en mi canal. Tony Also Knows Boxing. Está en sintonía en mi canal, suscríbete a mi canal, subscribe to my channel. Tony Also Knows Boxing. Estoy hablando de los comentarios que leyeron en el programa Proboxtv 2 años atrás, cuando estaban hablando del peso 140 y no le dieron crédito a Subriel Matías. Chris Algieri no le dio crédito a Subriel Matías. Yo mencioné que Chris Algieri no es un analista verdadero, porque no le quería dar crédito a Subriel Matías, le estaba dando más crédito a Regis Progress, que era ya fuera de su mejor, de los días mejores de él. Yo estaba hablando de lo que él dijo en el programa, que no le dieron crédito a Subriel Matías, y entonces ellos estaban riendo por los comentarios que yo le dije, que yo dije de Chris Algieri, y todo el mundo estaba riéndose. Y en ese programa, en 3 shows, me hice bien famoso en ese programa de Proboxtv, porque los comentarios míos eran bien sinceros y bien al grano, y estaba diciendo cosas verdaderas de lo que estaba diciendo Chris Algieri, y no estaba mencionando a Subriel Matías como un verdadero una verdadera amenaza en los 140. Ellos me mencionaron varias veces en ese show 2 años atrás. Suscríbete a mi canal, Tony Also Knows Boxing. You're tuning into my channel. Yes. Yo quería compartir eso con todo el mundo, y voy a entrevistar a Abisael Cotto el jueves que viene, este jueves a las 6, sobre su pelea, que va a pelear en la cartelera de Juanma López versus Gallo de Producer. Y esta va a ser la 3ª entrevista que yo hago con Abisael Cotto. Él es el futuro campeón de Puerto Rico en la 130, 9-0 con 8 knockouts. Y va a tener una buena prueba con un boxeador que solo fue noqueado por Shakur Stevenson y Raymond Ford, que está clasificado número 1, Raymond Ford, y Shakur Stevenson el número 1. Ya tú sabes que él va a tener una buena prueba, Abisael Cotto. Saludos. Gracias por estar en sintonía. Thanks for being in tune to my channel. Subscribe to the channel. Tony Also Knows Boxing. Estoy hablando de lo que me hizo famoso en Proboxtv, los comentarios míos que me mencionaron a mí varias veces en el show. Y si quieres ver ese show, Proboxtv, donde me mencionaron a mí, Tony Also, que yo estaba defendiendo a Subriel Matías porque no le estaban dando el crédito en esos días. En ese entonces él era el IBF Champion y Chris Algieri no quería rankearlo de los mejores de la 140. Quería decir que estaban diciendo que Regis Progress era uno de los mejores en ese tiempo y estaba diciendo que Devin Haney era el mejor. Hola, amigo. Ok, gracias por estar en sintonía, mi hermano. Suscríbete a mi canal, Tony Also Knows Boxing. You're tuning into my channel. That's all I got for now. This is what made Tony Also famous. Subscribe to the channel. I'm